Hello and welcome back to another Parry This video. Today we are going to be taking a look at another historic battle, this time being the Battle of Bunker Hill in the American Revolutionary War. We are going to summarize the battle, the tactics, and the equipment of the time, and then take a look at the hypothetical time travel situation of what if a 50-man expeditionary force of American soldiers were sent back in time to this battle to help the Americans win against the British. These soldiers will be coming from 1918, and they are an experienced group of 50 frontline battle-hardened infantrymen. Their orders are simple: stop the British at all costs, and help the American Minutemen attain victory. This expeditionary force will be armed with the most common, and in several cases the best weapons of their time, and will be carrying only what would have been common in the trenches of World War I. So they have limited ammo, but their weapons are vastly superior in nearly every way. But first, let's talk a little bit about the actual historical Battle of Bunker Hill before we go any further into our fictional time travel scenario. The Battle of Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill, which took place on June 17th, 1775, wasn't actually fought on Bunker Hill, but its neighboring Breed's Hill. It was one of the early engagements between British and Patriot forces during the American Revolutionary War. The tensions had been mounting since the events in Lexington and Concord, and the city of Boston was essentially under British occupation at this time. In response to the threat posed by the Patriots assembling artillery, British commanders planned to occupy the high ground around Boston, including Bunker Hill and Breed's Hill, to gain a tactical advantage. Patriots, under the leadership of Colonel William Prescott, caught wind of this plan and decided to set up defensive positions on Breed's Hill. So here's what we have for tactics and firearms for this setting. For the Patriots, they entrenched themselves behind earthen fortifications and wooded barricades while occupying the high ground. Most of their firearms were varied. Many were civilian firearms, not built for standard military use, though some might have and probably had the Brown Bess muskets captured or bought from elsewhere. The famous order, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes," is attributed to this battle. This tactic ensured that the Patriots conserved ammunition and increased the chances of hitting their targets. This was likely never actually spoken and is likely a much later phrase attributed to the commander in this battle, but it is likely that these tactics were used, and we can tell this because of the effectiveness of the American defense. As far as the British side goes, the Redcoats were trained in linear tactics, and they moved against the Patriot positions in large formations. The majority were equipped with the Brown Bess musket, which had an effective range of about 100 yards, but was most accurate within 50 yards, or 150 feet. The bayonet was also an essential part of their tactics, especially for charges. The British also had artillery, and they employed it in this battle, but the accuracy was wanting, and it failed to dislodge the Patriots from their positions initially, and is noted to probably not have caused any significant casualties in this battle. So, in simple terms, this is how the Battle of Bunker Hill progressed. There were 3 assaults. In the first assault, the British troops under Major General William Howe attempted to storm the Patriot positions head-on, and they were met with fierce resistance and suffered heavy casualties, forcing them to retreat. The second assault, despite the heavy losses, the British made a second attempt to capture the hill, targeting the same position. Once again, they were pushed back by the well-entrenched Patriots. And finally, with the third assault, the British changed their tactics, concentrating their efforts on the weaker parts of the Patriot defenses, and they launched a bayonet charge. By this time, the Patriots were actually running low on ammunition and unable to hold their positions. They began a tactical withdrawal from the hill. As far as casualties for the battle are concerned, the British suffered heavily with around 226 killed and 828 wounded, and the Patriots also had significant casualties with about 140 killed and 301 wounded or missing. And keep in mind, as far as those casualties are concerned, the total amount of troops engaged in the battle was about 5,400 soldiers, with about 2,400 on the American side and 3,000 on the British side. So as far as the aftermath and significance of this battle goes, though the British succeeded in capturing the hill, the victory was a Pyrrhic one due to the heavy casualties that they sustained. The battle demonstrated the tenacity and fighting spirit of the American militia, disproving the British belief that they would be easily quelled. It also provided a significant morale boost to the Patriot cause, proving that they could stand toe-to-toe with the well-trained British Army. The Battle of Bunker Hill was a testament to the determination and resilience of both sides. While the British emerged victorious in terms of ground gained, the psychological and strategic implications of the battle favored the Americans, setting the tone for much of the conflict that would follow. So before we send some time-traveling soldiers back to this earliest of American battles, let's evaluate what a possible American victory at Bunker Hill could have meant historically speaking. If the American troops had managed to hold the line and win the Battle of Bunker Hill, several immediate and long-term consequences might have emerged, although this is of course speculative. Number 1, an immediate boost in morale. A definitive American victory at Bunker Hill, especially so early in the war, would have provided an even greater morale boost for the Patriots. It would solidify the belief among Americans that they could not only stand up to the British but also defeat them. Number 2, British reevaluation. A loss at Bunker Hill for the British might have prompted British High Command to reassess its strategy more quickly. They might have reinforced their troops in North America sooner or adopted a different strategic approach towards the rebellion. Number 3, the Continental Congress and international implications. A victory could have led to even greater support for the war effort from the Continental Congress, possibly expediting foreign aid and support, especially from France. France was keenly observing the conflict to gauge American potential, and a significant victory could have convinced them earlier of the American capability. Number 4, impact on peace talks. At various points in the early years of the Revolution, there were attempts to negotiate peace. A more assertive American military victory might have changed the dynamics of these discussions, either emboldening the American position or making the British more amenable to concessions earlier than in our timeline. Number 5, possible escalation. The British might have retaliated with even greater force or increased brutality, both out of a desire to suppress the rebellion quickly and to save face following an embarrassing defeat. Number 6, changes in leadership. Some British military leaders might have faced criticism or even been replaced sooner. On the American side, successful commanders would gain prominence more rapidly, potentially altering the trajectory of certain military careers. Number 7, local impact. A full American victory at Bunker Hill would likely deter future British attempts to seize key high grounds around Boston without much stronger forces. This might have changed the dynamics of the siege of Boston and could have led to an earlier British evacuation. However, it's essential to recognize that while battles play a critical role in the progression of wars, they are only one component. Political, economic, social, and international factors all played crucial roles in the American Revolution's outcome. The war's overall trajectory would depend on numerous battles, decisions, and events, not just the outcome at Bunker Hill. Nonetheless, the American victory at this critical juncture would undoubtedly have reshaped some aspect of the war's early years. So with all of that being said, let's get to the exciting part and talk about our World War I time traveler. So we will be sending 50 battle-hardened veterans, all of which are in top fighting form and peak physical shape, all of which were selected for this job based on their ability to follow orders, their individual marksmanship, their bravery, and their endurance under fire. These are not supermen, but they are the best group of 50 men the American War Command could muster for this crucial mission in 1918. For simplicity's sake, we will limit their arms and ammunition to being realistic and simpler than it would have been in the trenches of World War I. There will be 2 machine gun squads operating 30-06 caliber Maxim guns. Each of these is a 4-man squad, which will take up 8 of our men. The other 42 will be all dedicated riflemen. Each rifleman will be armed with the most commonly used rifle of World War I in 1918 by the American troops, which is the M1917 Enfield rifle, chambered in 30-06. This is a bolt-action rifle with a 6-round capacity and an effective, accurate firing range of about 600 yards. The ammunition for these rifles was held in 6-round stripper clips, making reloading fast and easy, and resulting in a very steady rate of fire, which effectively and accurately would commonly be about 10 to 20 rounds per minute. Each rifleman will have a historically standard amount of ammunition for their rifle, being exactly 150 rounds per person. The riflemen will also be equipped with sidearms, and I have chosen the M1911 as their sidearm. It is certainly not the only sidearm used by American forces during World War I, but it is arguably the most effective and therefore the best choice for this expeditionary force. The M1911 was chambered in 45 ACP and had an effective fire range of about 50 yards, and an ammo capacity of 7 rounds. In the right hands, with training, this sidearm has an effective, accurate firing rate of between 25 and 40 rounds per minute. I could not find historical sources to suggest the amount of ammunition that was carried for these guns, so I've decided to give each rifleman 35 rounds, which would be 5 magazines for the M1911. Finally, each rifleman will be equipped with 2 Mark II fragmentation grenades, which have an effective blast radius of about 15 feet and can be accurately thrown by most people between 30 and 50 feet. And each rifleman will also have a bayonet which fits their rifle, and can also be used in the hand as a knife. These men will not have any special armor, but 1 in 6 will have binoculars, giving them greater visibility of the battlefield, and all of them will have rations, basic first aid kits, standard uniforms, and steel helmets. Moving on to our machine gun squads, we're going to have 2 Maxim machine gun squads. Each one is going to be manned by 4 men. These men will not have rifles, but each will have an M1911 as a sidearm. And to make up for their lack of rifles, they will have twice as much pistol ammo, so 70 rounds each. They will also each have a trench knife for close quarters engagements. They're carrying less gear because they are all carrying ammunition for the Maxim guns. Each member of each machine gun squad is carrying 2 250 round canvas ammunition belts for their machine gun. So each squad has only 2,000 rounds of ammunition for their Maxim guns before they are spent. The Maxim gun is chambered in 30-06, one of many calibers it could have been found in at the time, and has a rate of fire of 550 to 600 rounds per minute, and an effective range of nearly 2,000 yards. So, now that we have the specific details of our World War I expeditionary forces all laid out, let's take a look at what this would all mean. We know that the real-life battle was fought on Breed's Hill, a steep hill that limited the approach vectors of the British Army. We know that the fortifications and natural landscape of the hill gave a significant strategic advantage to the American defenders based on the results of the battle in real life. There were 3 assaults, and the British were annihilated in the first 2 assaults, only finally overwhelming the outnumbered defenders when the Americans ran out of ammo. Situated like this, with a fortified position occupying the high ground, this battle would be childishly easy for the World War I soldiers to win. I would actually wager that all of the American Minutemen could actually just go home, and the World War I soldiers would probably win the battle with few, if any, casualties, claiming a total crushing victory over the British. But we'll assume that the American Minutemen welcome the World War I troops and are all present for the battle. Here is how I see this battle going down. The World War I troops will keep the strategic position of Breed's Hill, as this was the best tactical advantage in the area, and was already fortified by the Minutemen. They would split in half into 2 groups of 25 men, each one centered around a machine gun squad. These 2 groups would take the outer flanks of the battlefield, or at least as far out as they could while still maintaining clear firing lanes into the main field of battle, this being the enemy-facing slope of Breed's Hill. This positioning would allow for the Minutemen to be further concentrated into the center, without fear of their flanks folding. The withering fire from the Maxim guns and the Enfield rifles would be far more accurate, deadly, and long-range than anything the British forces would be able to muster. This being located on the flanks of the battle would mean that would naturally cause the British to cluster towards the center as they were annihilated on the sides of their assault. This would lead to a compounding effect where the defensive volley fire of the Minutemen, assuming the British ever got within range, would be even more effective, as the British would be in tighter formations and would likely be rattled by the death being rained down on them from the flanks by the World War I soldiers. If the British committed to a full-on assault with all of their available forces, I estimate that every single one of them would be wiped out in the first assault. Based on the available ammunition, fire rate, firepower, and range of the World War I troops, I doubt any British would ever get within musket range of the American defenders. If they did, however, they would be mowed down by the American volley fire as they were in real life, all while being decimated by the overlapping fields of fire of the World War I troops. Even if we are generous and say that both of the Maxim gun squads exhaust their ammunition in the initial assault, and the British are able to reform and recharge, assuming they weren't annihilated in the first wave, they would still face the fully armed and ready Minutemen, who would be uninjured and would still have plenty of ammunition, as well as the World War I soldiers, who would still likely have nearly half of their rifle ammunition, all of their sidearm ammunition, and would have 100 grenades amongst them at their disposal if the British ever got within 150 feet of their position. All of this isn't even to consider that the World War I soldiers would have orders to target enemy commanders and officers with prejudice. The British commander would be dead, as would all of his subordinates, until the British would be taking commands from corporals. Overall, I estimate that before the American World War I troops had exhausted their ammunition, the British army would either be in full retreat with much heavier losses than in real life, or they would all lie dead on the battlefield, having been slaughtered by the American defenders. At this point, the American troops would be able to further fortify both hills, taking equipment, firearms, ammunition, and supplies from the slain British, which would include all of the British artillery, and they would be better positioned than ever to hold the high ground around Boston. At this point, they could either sue for peace with the British forces in Boston, reclaiming the town for patriots, or simply wait for American reinforcements to retake the town and slay the remaining British army in the area. This victory would have huge implications, including increased bargaining power for the Continental Congress, further confidence in American victory by potential allies like France and Spain, and likely a huge morale boost leading to greater local support for independence and for the Continental Army. So, even if the World War I expeditionary force packed up and returned home immediately after winning the Battle of Bunker Hill, they likely would have won the entire Revolutionary War in a matter of mere hours. And so, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this video. After my Alamo video, a lot of people pointed out that modern-day Rangers are a bit overkill, and a lot of suggestions were made for where to send my troops next. So I figured I'd take a similar situation, but make the soldiers from over 100 years earlier. In the end, the results were still very similar. Modern firepower and tactics would be far too much for the contemporary forces to handle. So if you have any other battles that you want me to change with time-traveling nonsense, why don't you let me know down in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you for watching and have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.